Take your Bible and look at Ephesians chapter number 5, Ephesians chapter number 5, and 1 Samuel chapter 17. Ephesians chapter number 5, please, and 1 Samuel 17. I heard a very organized man say that he spent at least 20 minutes on his introduction thinking about it, what he would say. I didn't spend that much time on the introduction. I don't have one. I'd rather just jump right in. I'll think about that for next message. Ephesians 5. Look at verse number 18, the last little phrase. But be filled with the Spirit. But be filled with the Spirit. May that concept not die out in our churches. Certainly it was mentioned already this week. The result of being filled with the Spirit, semicolon. You'll speak to yourselves in psalms and hymns, and you'll speak to yourself with spiritual songs. Notice who we're speaking to. We're speaking to ourselves. But we'll sing and make a melody in our heart to the Lord. Another evidence is we'll be giving thanks always for all things, good and bad, unto God. I'd like to focus in on the last one tonight. I'm getting ready to end another year of my life and start a new year very shortly. And probably verse 21 means more to me right now than it ever has. Submitting ourselves or yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Submitting. Submitting requires humility. We have to be clothed with humility, submit. And I'll let you know this. One of the most important things I believe about having a most fruitful life for the Lord is the concept of submitting. Submitting yourselves one another. Submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. I know what verse 22 says, but don't let that take away from what we're supposed to be doing. I obviously am pastor of a church. I have weaknesses that I must submit to strengths of others in our church. I'll say it again. I have weaknesses. One of the most important things to find out is what your weaknesses are. And then realize, find someone, discern somebody that's strong in that area and submit to them. In our church, I don't run our finances. You say, aren't you the pastor? Yes. Don't you know the finances? No. I did for 15 years, and that's why I have gray hair. And no hair. Because for 15, 20 years, maybe 18 years, I did the best I could. And since that time, we've had, if you would, 4 different men who run the finances of our church. And right now we have 7, but one of them primarily is our financial pastor. He runs the show. I submit to him. Oh, wait a minute. Did you choose him? The Holy Ghost chose him. I acknowledge the choice of the Holy Ghost. Are you still with me or not? Did I lose you? When he came on board with us, he was a former Navy officer in that area, comptroller type, on a hospital ship. If you know what a hospital ship is, I asked him, I said, does $5 million a year scare you? He said, no. I said, does $10 million a year scare you? He said, no. I said, how about 15 million? He told me what the budget for the hospital ship was, and I said, you'll do. He works tirelessly. He said, Pastor, do you want to see the reports? I said, no. Go over them every week with our fiscal management staff, and every Tuesday morning that's done. But I really don't want to see them. Just let me know if it looks like we're going down the tubes. That's all I want to know. I'm not being arrogant, because it's not an area of strength in my life. In fact, Please don't think me unmanly, but I don't run the finances in our home. You say, oh, what an unmanly thing. Who does? My wife. You say, why does she do it? She's meticulous with it. At 12:30 a.m., she's on the computer checking out what I spent. She allows me an allowance of $20 a week, whether I need it or not. Why? I don't want to know. Aren't you involved? Yes. How are you involved? Sure, honey, that sounds good. Why? It's an area that she's passionate about, and I haven't balanced a checkbook in 40 years. 40? At least. You said, how'd you run your life? I know. My point being is it's not an area of strength for me. Therefore, there has to be people in my life that I submit to in that area that are blessed and gifted by God in that area. And may I say, I believe people are empowered in that area. In our church, I'm not good at fixing things, colors, rooms, flooring, carpet, lighting, anything to do with the building. I have not been in all the rooms in our church. We've been there 17 years. Don't you want to know? No. Send me a picture. You think I got pictures on my phone of what we're doing in the building. Why are you not involved with that? I don't even dress myself. This is what my wife said I'm wearing tonight. How do you know that? I have one suit with me. I have 5 shirts with ties on every shirt. That's the costume for the night. That's what I wear. If you don't like it, I'll give you my wife. You can text her. Because you say, can't you see it? I don't care. Don't you want to look nice? Sure. There are times when my wife forgets. I walk out the door. My 22-year-old daughter says, wait a minute, Dad. Stop right there. Don't embarrass us. Take that tie off. Here, wear this one. I submit to her. Why? Because it's just a uniform. Are you still with me or not? Did I lose you? You say, oh, what do you mean you don't care? Brethren, we care about what we're strong in. We're passionate in some areas. In other areas, we submit and trust other people's judgment. Are you still with me or not? Now, I want to tell you something. You say, I want a pastor that runs the whole show. You're putting a lid on what you can do. If you want a pastor that runs the entire show and everything in it, that church will only go so far, and then it will stop with his understanding and his level of faith and his level of accomplishment, and you possibly will not become all you're supposed to be. Are you still with me? You say, what if you don't have anybody else? Pray for them. Pray for the Holy Ghost to send them in. So the concept in the Bible even is that when we're filled, we submit ourselves one to another in the fear of God, and we find strengths in other people. And then after we begin to trust them, now, Pastor, don't you know you can get burned? Of course. Have been. Will be. Thank you very much. But our church will not be topped because of my level of faith. It will not look like my level of color coordination. And thank God for that. It will not be ceilinged by the amount of finances that I feel like I can handle. God can put much more in than I can handle. We're way over my head. We've been over my head for 18, 19 years now. Are you still with me? The idea is submitting to somebody else's strength is the key to moving forward beyond what you are, beyond who you are. With that in mind, look at 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. This is a short little message, 1 Samuel 17. You know this already, but watch it if you would, 1 Samuel 17. Notice if you would, verse 51. Verse 51. And therefore David ran, stood upon the Philistine, took his sword, drew it out of the sheath thereof, slew him, cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel of Judah arose and said, for 40 days and 40 nights, nobody had the courage to go down, because nobody was empowered to go down. God purposely didn't let David get there until after 40 days and 40 nights of challenge. Saul didn't go down. Jonathan didn't go down. There was only one coming up the hillside, a young lad, empowered by God, with the Spirit of God already on him, that was going to go do that. Are you still with me? I'll say it again. God made sure that there was a 40-day and 40-night challenge and nobody went down, including Saul and including Jonathan. But when David saw the situation, he immediately got involved, and his involvement allowed him to run toward Goliath. Come on, is that right? And in a quick ambush. What do you mean ambush? Brethren, he ran so quickly to him, Goliath didn't even take his sword out of his sheath. What do you mean? He didn't even draw his weapon. He was so arrogant, so full of confidence, with that armor bearer in front of him, that he didn't pull his sword out. David took that slingshot, ran towards him. That slingshot let that projectile go, and you know the story. Look, if you would, at verse number 49. David put his hand in his bag, took thence a stone, slang it, smote the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. Down south, they have a way of reasoning that. They say that when David took that slingshot and swung it around, and that rock went towards the forehead, that God slapped Goliath on the back of the head and he fell forward. Makes for good preaching. I don't quite think of it that way. If you talk to any good high-powered sniper with a high-powered rifle, he'll tell you if you hit the sweet spot in the middle of the forehead, it sucks the forehead forward. And the guy you just shot will fall on his face. Oh, you didn't know that? The velocity of the weapons that we now have, the snipers talk about it. If they hit just right, the head is pulled forward when the rifle bullet comes in, and it causes the victim, I should say the target, to fall flat on his face. Goliath didn't even get his sword out. Then they followed David's courage. What do you mean? Those on the mountain who've been threatened 40 days and 40 nights by the big guy down in the valley with the little armor bearer running out, now all of a sudden got courage due to what they saw. And they submitted to David's courage. Come on, are you still with me or not? In 1977, I was on a hillside in, you're gonna kind of wonder about this, in a place called Mindanao in the Philippines. Mindanao has always been a place where there were insurgents. There still are. It's a place where we would call them terrorists now, but in 1977, the group out there and the grouping was backed by Chinese and Russian, and they were called NPA. NPA. Vietnam was already over, but I was out that night with a group of men, and the leader of that group of men was a recon veteran commanding officer, and I still remember his name. And there was a helicopter that had gone down that had some sophisticated weaponry and electronics on it. It was monsoon season, and it had sunk. And we were sent out to put a guard on it so nobody could take things off of there that were important. And that night, we were moving along fairly quickly. And if you've never been shot at before, it's an unusual first sensation. How to describe it, and I'm not a great combat veteran. It's a good thing they weren't a good shot. But let's just say that you can hear the crack, and then it comes by, and if it's close, you'll hear the whistle. And then things start kicking up around you at your feet, especially if they're firing a little short. And when that first started happening, I thought, oh, it must be starting to rain. Then you hear the cracks. Yeah, but there was thunder. So it was masking it. And I looked over at the recon captain experience, and he was already on the deck. What do you mean on the deck? Flat out. He had already recognized it, and I was kind of like, huh? What? About like that. He said, didn't you train? You only can train so much. I hit the deck. He immediately looked at me and he said, grab a radio. I got over to the radio operator. I put on this, we had names for the radios. Had a whip antenna on it. Stuck that radio on. He said, follow me. And the two of us went off, not away from them, the enemy, towards them. Now I want you to know something. That was me. I don't know if he was doing that. It was probably for him. But I think that was anger in him, because he was experienced. Please listen. That wasn't anger. That was fear. I was following his courage. I was submitting to his experience. Are you still with me or not? I'm not making this up. I still remember it kind of vividly. Nobody got hit. And he was low crawling and jerking and jiving, and I was following him. Little pings that weren't raindrops. None of us hit it. None of them hit. And he said, he motioned me over, and he clicked the handset twice, and a guy came up, which is normal operating procedures, and he said, identified not his name, but his call sign. And they said authenticate. I could hear it. Authenticate means there's a code. Every day the code changes. Sometimes it changes twice a day. Authenticate. He gave his authentication. May I just say this? He had assets that I didn't know we had. I'll say it a different way. He had air assets that I did not know we had. He knew. Everybody doesn't have the need to know. You say, why doesn't everybody know? Because power trips can mess things up if you don't know how to use the assets you have. Are you still with me or not? And he authenticated, and he gave them the command to stand by on station. Now, may I say this to you very clearly? It was his command, whether he called them in or not. And there was something that we had in those days that was a little bit different because of the politics. Did you ever watch Andy of Mayberry? Do you know Barney? He had a gun but no bullet. Where did the bullet stay? Either that, or if he got in trouble, it went into Andy's drawer. He wasn't even allowed to carry it. When Barney got into trouble, come on, are you still with me? Andy would say, give me your bullet. Otherwise, he put it in his pocket, right? We would call these Barney Fife missions, which meant this. You had the weapon. You had the rounds. You locked it in, but you couldn't load. They say, huh? You locked it in, but you didn't chamber a round. Why? Bureaucracy. It's not good if you shoot somebody in an allied nation without the proper clearances. Are you still with me or not? You say, what do you mean? There were layers after Vietnam of politics. I didn't go to Vietnam. This guy knew what he was doing. He called the air first and said, stand it by. So they were circling, and he asked, how long? They said 4 minutes. Clicked the handset again, called his commanding officer. Up the chain it went. He knew his air asset was 4 minutes away. Where were you guys? I was laying flat listening. Submitting. Following. Are you still with me or not? Did you miss what I'm saying? He's the experienced one. He knew what he was doing. I was operating on his courage. You say, what happened that night? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? He didn't get clearance. Where'd that leave you? I know. What happened after that? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? They faded away. What'd he do? He shot a flare gun at him. Right at him. We weren't allowed to lock and load, but he said, later he said, if you hit them with a flare gun, what are they going to do? What'd that do? They weren't expecting that. Yeah. We were pretty close to them. If you see a flare gun coming at you, you say, what does it look like? It's pretty gnarly. This is not one of those little pop things. This is like a, yeah. It's a little different. It's just a little different. What are you saying? I followed his courage that night. Later on, we got back and he debriefed. How long did that take? He was teaching me. He first of all asked me, what'd you see? What'd you experience? I said, in all honesty, sir, fear. He said, thank you for being honest. Had you not said that, I would have known you were a liar. I said, how'd you know? He said, I saw it in your face. You weren't the first person I ever seen that way. Are you still with me or not? As you get further, find somebody that has a strength and submit to them. And they will carry you farther than you would go yourself. That's why church is so important. Church will take you much farther than you would have gone. Come on, is that right? If you say, no, I would have gone that far by myself. Really? Look, if you would, the book of Ruth real quick. The book of Ruth. Stay with me. The book of Ruth. The book of Ruth is a wonderful, wonderful book. Ladies, you know it. But I want to show you maybe something that you did or did not see yet. Ruth. I want you to know this about Ruth. Ruth is in the same category as the Shunammite woman and Abigail. Now, I'm not going to go into it for sake of time, but if you know anything about Abigail and the Shunammite woman, they're decision makers. And they're decision makers on a large scale. What do you mean? They're decision makers on a large scale. Ruth is a decision maker. Don't think Ruth is some, well, let me show you. Look at Ruth. She's a risk taker. She's a risk taker. Look at Ruth chapter 1. Here's what she says in verse 16. Entreat me not to leave thee, Naomi. Entreat me not to leave me, or to return from following after thee. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to leave my country. I'm going to follow you. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge, and thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. She was taking a risk. Right. Yes, sir. Very decisive. What do you mean? Well, look, if you would, at chapter 2. Chapter 2, stay with me. Ruth, verse 2. Ruth, chapter 2, verse 2. Ruth the Moabite said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field, glean ears of corn. It's the barley harvest. Wait a minute. It wasn't Naomi that said, why don't you go out to the field? It was Ruth that said, let me go to the field. She didn't even know where she was at, other than she was in Naomi's hometown. She didn't know all the customs. She just said, let me go to the field. Let me, come on, give me the okay. And glean ears of corn. She had initiative. Let me go to the field, glean ears of corn. After him in whose sight I shall find grace. Naomi said, go, my daughter. She went. She went and she came to a field, and notice what she did in verse 7. Stay with me. Here's the report when Boaz, the field owner, comes by. Well, she came and she said to us, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the weepers among the sheaves. Brethren, that's initiative. Ruth goes out to a field she doesn't know, walks over to those that are involved and said, I pray thee, let me glean after the sheaves, reapers among the sheaves. By the way, they know who she is because Boaz asked, and they all know who the Moabite woman is. The widow of a Jewish man. In fact, she knows who she is. Look at verse 13. Verse 13, she's talking to Boaz. Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord. For thou hast comforted me, for thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thine handmaids. I know I'm different. Boaz says, don't go to any other fields. Stay by my handmaids. You'll be like one of my handmaids if you would. And notice verse 23. Stay with me. Verse 23. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of the barley harvest. All the way through. All the way through the harvest. She was steadfast, submitted, if you would, to Boaz's strong suggestion, to what Naomi had told her to do up in verse number 19 and 20. Now stay with me. And then it got interesting. Chapter 3. Verse 3. Naomi says, wash yourself. Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee. Put thy raiment upon thee and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man. Wait until he's done eating and drinking. And then here's what I want you to do. Please look up here. I want you to go in and lay yourself down by his feet. You know what Ruth said? Okay. Submission. Brethren, look up here. That's risk taking. She's look up, in my mindset, Ruth is a go-getter. Huh? What do you mean a go-getter? Take charge? No. Submissive? Checks? Gets the go-ahead? And goes for it. I'll say it again. Ruth. Risk taker. Like a Shunammite. Like an Abigail. Checks in with her authority. The authority gives her the okay. And she goes for it. And so what'd she do? Just what Naomi said, verse 5. 3, verse 5. And she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. Look at verse 9. It's in the after midnight. This woman was laying at his feet. By the way, she's known as a virtuous woman. And he said, who art thou? And she answered, I'm Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. Brethren, that was the proposal. Come on, do I have that right? Yes, sir. You're looking at me, what are you talking about? She's submitted, but she's a risk taker. She's doing what Naomi has told her to do. What is that? It is following the faith and the understanding of Naomi. Let me say that again because you're not saying amen. She is following the faith and the understanding of Naomi. Amen. Yeah, thank you. See, the men don't know the story. You ladies just say amen once in a while. She is following the faith of Naomi. It's going to affect Naomi's future. Women don't go down to where the men are celebrating the barley harvest. Women aren't allowed in there. That's why Naomi said, don't let any of the men see you. Right. This is a night op. Get in there quietly. Wait till the right time. Can't you see her out there waiting, watching, waiting, watching? Things settle down. She sneaks in. According to Naomi's plan. Yep. Come on. Lays herself down at the guy's feet. Non-sexual. Right. Non-sexual. Right. The guy wakes up scared. What's going on? There's a woman laying at my feet. He said, who are you? That's a good question. Yeah. Fair enough. She says, I'm Ruth. You're my next kinsman. He says, stay here till the morning. But before it's dawn, get out of here. Don't let him see you. Nothing happened that night. Nothing physical happened that night. But it was Ruth's submission and risk-taking. Please listen, I'm a risk taker. But I can do it under submission to someone else. I can follow someone's faith. Even when I don't believe it. What do you mean? Our staff has taken us to heights that I would not have gone. Pastor, we've been thinking and we want to present an idea to you. And they'll present the idea and it's big. And I'll think, okay, guys, let me ask you some questions. I'll start asking questions because I'm a little skeptical. Well, Pastor, here's what we would do with that. Pastor, we think that change would be good. Pastor, this will work. Pastor, we believe we'll do this. And I'll say, all right, let me ask you a question. Will you all take responsibility for this? And they'll say, yes, sir. I said, okay, I'm in. In my heart, I'm going, I hope this works. What do you want me to do? They say, all we want you to do is inspire it. So my job is to inspire the church to follow this vision. You say, isn't it your vision? No. It's theirs. It only becomes mine when it's successful. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're looking at me going, you got a strange church. It's in the book. It's all over the book. Judah and Israel shouted after they watched Goliath fall forward. And after they watched a young lad take out a sword, look up here, and chop the guy's head off, and then hold the head up. That's inspiring. You say, why is that inspiring? Because when he held the head up, in my mind, I think he first of all held it up to one side.
Yeah. Come on now.
And maybe he turned back to the other side. And by that time, they were leaving. You don't hear anything about the armor bearer. He's gone. Come on, is that right? What happened to the armor bearer? Oh, he's me. But he's gone. Momentum shift. The momentum changed that day. Because on the one side, when Goliath came out and challenged, it was quiet. On that day, on the Israelite side in Judah, they shouted. It was a momentum changer. You still with me or not? And then they followed and submitted. Ruth is down there, and she said, spread thy skirt over thy handmaid. Culturally, that was a proposal. He said, I can't do that. There's another one before me. I wonder if he's been thinking about it. Because he said there's somebody else before me. Come on, is that right? So what happened? So early in the morning, Ruth, we would call it egresses. Quietly. Comes home, tells Naomi. What does Naomi say? Look at verse 18. Verse 18. Naomi says this, sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. That's a wise woman. Sister, you did right. Now just sit still and wait. That guy won't be able to rest until he gets this thing taken care of. Naomi was the leader. Ruth was the follower, but Ruth was the action taker. Come on, is that right?
Yes, yes.
I'll say it again. It was Naomi's plan culturally. Naomi understood it better than Ruth understood it. But Naomi, if you would, gave the plan, and Ruth had to be the risk taker. She had to go and do. But didn't that benefit both Ruth and Naomi? One more and we're done. Look at 1 Samuel 14. Everybody all right tonight? You say, man, I'm kind of topped out. I don't know if I can do anymore. Find somebody stronger than you are and pull in behind them in that area. It's not the pastor leading. It's sometimes the pastor learning and submitting to better leadership. Well, I wish the pastor would listen to me. I said better leadership. I'm leaving tomorrow night. Don't be surprised if we don't wait and watch a little bit to see if God's hand's on you. I'll say it again. Don't be surprised if we don't wait and watch a little bit to see if God's hand's on you. Let me say that one more time. We want to see that God's hand's on you in that area. Because if you're filled with the Spirit, we'll see you submitting in some area.
Good. Amen.
I'll say that again. If you're filled with the Spirit, you will submit in some area of weakness, and that will be noticeable. So look at 1 Samuel 14. You know the story, verse 6. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, come up, come. Stay with me, verse 6, let us go over. It may be, he's not sure.
Right.
It may be, there's hundreds of thousands of them out there. It just may be that the Lord will work for us. Why? There's no restraint to the Lord. The armor bearer said, do all that is in thine heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thine heart. Strategically, watch what happens. So Jonathan takes them through the sequence, and Jonathan decides, let's go up. Verse 13. And Jonathan climbed upon his hands and upon his feet. May I say to you, whoever has the high ground strategically is in power. And Jonathan's climbing upon his hands and his feet upward. He's in a defilade position. He's at the weak spot, and he's going up, and his armor bearer is going after him. And Jonathan slew. Didn't say that. It says Jonathan, then they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew them. What does that mean? So Jonathan, going upward, please watch, would take one swing, and they fell. And then he would go after the next one and take a swing, and they would fall. And then he'd go after the next one, and that guy would fall. Behind him, the armor bearer was finishing them. Are you still with me? The armor bearer is not a golf caddy. Which club would you like? Let's kind of look at your putt here. See the angle? No. Jonathan knows what he's doing. The armor bearer is enabling him.
That's good.
I'll say it again. The armor bearer is enabling Jonathan.
Right.
Jonathan's swinging. The armor bearer is killing. And they're going up together. And when they did, God moved. Are you still with me? Did you see me in there? What do you mean? Did you see me in there? Which one are you? I'm the armor bearer. You say you're just saying that. Oh, no. No, I'm the armor bearer. No, you're the pastor. I'm the armor bearer. I got guys much greater capability than I have. Swinging.
Amen.
Accomplishing.
Amen.
What are you doing? Supporting them. You say you're just saying that. I was Jonathan in my 30s and 40s. Then I went through a depression. It put me in the rearward. And I'm happy being back there.
Amen.
Amen.
You say, are you serious? Yeah. I don't run the music at our church. I monitor it, but I don't run it. I don't run the big days at our church. I monitor it, but I don't run it. Why don't you? We got guys much greater capability than I do, with much greater vision. What do you do? I know. I know. But I want to say this to you. God wouldn't give those guys if they couldn't lead. Why doesn't God give me more guys? To be an armor bearer, you got to let go.
There it is.
Are you still with me?
Amen.
Where'd you learn that at? On the side of a hill? In Mindanao. When I didn't know what I was doing. And somebody much more experienced than I was, with greater courage, said, grab the radio, come on. Are you still listening? If you expect the pastor to be everything, you're putting way too much on him. Now, I know your pastor's good at finances. Aren't you, brother? Mary? I'm not talking about at home.
She has no clue.
Right. You run them at home? Good. I think Ruth ran Boaz later. Just a thought. Why? She's an organizer. There's an attraction to Abigail. Why? She's an organizer. Shunammite? She's an organizer. Don't worry, honey, I'll take care of it. You got a financial team in your church? But you know what's going on. Yeah. I don't want to see them.
Yeah.
Don't you want to see a report, Pastor? No, don't put it in my box. Why? Fretting. Huh? The report makes me fret. What's fret? It's the biblical word for worrying. We have in our bulletin the finances for the week. I never read the midweek bulletin. I don't want to know. You're flying by, I know, by submission. Because I'm not good at it. How'd you get as far as you got? I know. Don't believe your introduction. What do you mean? Oh, here's this great man of God. Oh, no. No. Just put me in the back, following along. I'll be just fine, thank you. Because the collective faith of our staff is much greater than mine. And the collective ability of our staff is much greater than me as an individual.
Amen.
Come on, you still with me?
That's good.
I'm saying that with all my heart. And you'll last longer if you're not in front swinging. What do you mean you'll last longer? My birthday's just around the corner. I'm hoping I get another decade pastoring. I hope. I hope. I already tried to quit. I mean, not just the pastorate, but life. Glad I'm still here. I'm just saying. Well, what happened during your depression when you wanted to give up? My wife's strength and the strength of our staff carried us. I'm not just making that up. If my wife was here, she'd say, "Oh, I don't know if that's true." And I said, "Patty, tell the truth." "Okay, it's true." About 5 months ago, I wasn't preaching on a Sunday night. I was in the church, but I wasn't preaching. I had the staff running the platform. And I don't know why, but just before the offering, I was standing in the back watching everything that was going on, and the ushers came up, and I put my Bible down. I said to one of the ushers, "Sit down, let me take your spot tonight." And I was serious about what I was doing. It wasn't a joke. And he said, "Sure, Pastor." And he sat down, and there was 4 ushers in the middle aisle, and 2 on the side aisles, and everything. And I got behind the second one on the middle, and I walked down, just like ushers should, watching the platform, waiting for the leader, and didn't say a word. Wasn't a joke to me. One of our staff members looked down and saw me and said, "I see we have a new usher tonight." I didn't say a word. I didn't look around. I didn't smile. I was serious. Went on. Somebody took a picture of it. I got it on my phone. What was it to you? That's where I started in our church. I was an usher. And I thought I'd better practice for the future.
Good.
Because I hope I can become that again
Amen.
when it's time. I'm not just saying that.
Amen.
I hope I can be an usher to our pastor when it's my turn to turn it over to him. What would you like to do, pastor, in our church? Just let me usher. Kind of full circle. You were serious? Absolutely serious. Every once in a while I pull it up and look at it. And I think, you better appreciate what you have.
Good.
Leave the church better for the guy coming. And be very happy that you even get the privilege to usher. Let's bow our heads.